So we are currently in Alexandria, Virginia, which is around 10 miles outside of Washington, D.C., which is where we will be spending the remainder of today. Now, this means two things. For starters, it worked. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the last vlog, and you will see how I literally morphed myself into a mechanic for the night with the help of ChatGPT and YouTube, as well as my girlfriend, and managed to solve an issue that the van was having in the nick of time. And this also means that we have officially left the geographical and cultural southern United States. So we are now in a different region. And I just want to know, Nadia, does it feel different to you so far? I know we haven't really gotten a chance to explore just yet, and we're about to, and we're going to take you along with us, but does it feel different to you thus far?
It does feel a bit different. Well, I don't know about the south compared to this, but just these last few states felt a bit different for some reason. Like it feels more alive here, and there's a lot more greenery, I feel like.
It feels more alive. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Like how I said, Texas felt a bit soulless. I don't feel that as much here. I don't really know what it is. What makes it feel less like that here? Maybe it's also that it seems like it's not as big as in Texas.
Yeah.
The roads are a bit smaller and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't mind that.
Well, of course you don't. You're from the Netherlands.
It's like, it gives it a nicer feel, I think.
Definitely more of an urban feel, you would say?
Yeah. But maybe it's because that's more familiar to me, personally. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do feel a lot different here. It does feel denser. And part of that could just be because we're in a larger city in general, whereas whenever we're in Dallas, I don't know why this car is rushing up to me so quickly. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but the speed limit here is 25 miles per hour. So I'm gonna follow that personally. But this area that we're in, again, is pretty close to DC. So that could be part of it. But I also think that this region of the country, the Northeast, just generally tends to be a lot denser than the South. But speaking of density and atmosphere, urban planning, urbanity, etc., we are actually getting ready to go to a park and ride. Maybe a week or so ago, I made a video with my girlfriend talking about how it was kind of illogical that you had to drive to the train stations. Didn't really make much sense. Now I see a practical use of that setup, because if you're gonna do this kind of lifestyle, and obviously very few people are actually doing van life, but if you are gonna do this lifestyle, it's nice to be able to park somewhere and know that your car will be secure and be able to take public transit. So obviously we could drive to where we're going. We're gonna go to the White House, maybe see the Washington Monument. I don't really know much about DC. I don't know too much about these monuments. Didn't pay a whole lot of attention in history class growing up, if I'm being honest. But we're gonna see as much as we can, because we're only gonna be here probably for a day. Maybe we stay through tomorrow, but we're really heading to another city, which is a lot bigger. And if you look at the direction that we're going in, it's pretty clear where we're going. But we'll see how much we can explore today.
Yeah.
There's no real intention behind this video because, again, I don't know much about DC. I'm assuming you don't know much about DC either?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, we're literally just exploring today. One thing that I have heard about DC though is that from an urban planning standpoint, it's much more similar to Europe. So a lot of mid-rise development. In fact, I think there's a law that states that they can't even really build skyscrapers there because the buildings can't be above a certain level or something like that. I don't know. If you know more about that, then please inform me in the comments. But even just the vibe right here, you can tell it just looks a lot different than Dallas. The roads seem a lot nicer for sure.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because the roads seem to be made of asphalt, if I'm not mistaken. but the lines are
They're
clearer.
darker.
Yeah, they seem a lot better maintained than the roads in Dallas do. But there's still a lot of trees and whatnot. You can tell this area is kind of old because of this power line set up here, as far as just how disorganized they look. The lines themselves, they look disorganized. But also you can see there's a bike lane on the side, which is really nice, because obviously we don't really have a whole lot of those in Dallas, especially in the suburbs surrounding Dallas. But that said, let's go ahead and get to this park and ride so that we can get to the real destination. So we are here at the Alexandria Park and Ride, and we are about to get on the train for the first time. And something that I forgot to mention in terms of differences between this area and the other areas we've seen. For starters, the weather is a lot better here. So this especially bodes well for sleeping in a vehicle at night. This, in my opinion, has been the biggest, most pronounced difference. It's also made the biggest difference on our quality of life. Where are we supposed to go? I honestly do not know anything about this station. I guess we're supposed to go in there. But as I was saying, the weather here is a lot better than it was anywhere in the South, from Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, etc. It's hot as hell. I hope you can hear me. I don't know what those announcements are for. But also the architecture here is a lot different. So let's go ahead and try to get through this little gate right here. So see, this is a lot different than the stations in the Netherlands, because in the Netherlands, don't you pretty much just walk in?
You have a card.
Yeah, you scanned your card, but I feel like the Dutch card not accepted. I guess.
Oh, you need a train card?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't really know how that works. At least you don't need cash. That's nice. But let's go ahead and see if we can figure this out. Okay, we figured it out. So now we are here in the station. But as I was saying, something else that's really stuck out to me is the difference in architecture. And it's kind of a gradual change as you go throughout the country. But if you were to get on a plane in Dallas and get off of a plane anywhere in this area, you would notice a pretty pronounced difference in the architecture. So as far as I'm aware, I'm not an architecture buff by any means, I'm not an expert, but here in the Northeast, they tend to favor, I think it's colonial architecture, which is basically those Minecraft looking houses that are very, very plain, but they do have a lot of historical charm, and they are historical. Houses here, really everything here is a lot older than it is in Dallas, as well as the Western United States of America. And that is very apparent given that they have a robust public transportation system here. So again, I've never actually been in this area at all. This area is known as the DMV to the locals, so that stands for DC, Maryland, Virginia. I've never been here before. I've only been to New York and Boston in this part of the country. But from what I can tell, all three of those cities have a really robust public transit system, which, as you saw in the video I was referring to earlier, Dallas most certainly does not. So I'm excited to see what this has in store for us. We're supposed to get on this train right here, which will take us to another train where we'll transfer, and then that'll take us to the White House area, hopefully. I don't really know. I'm just going based on what ChatGPT told me. Either way, we are about to go on an adventure. And I mean, we're already on an adventure because we're a very long way from Texas, but we're about to go on an adventure within an adventure, an excursion, if you will. But I'm gonna try to document as much as I can of this train so that you can compare it to what you might see in Europe, assuming that you're from Europe or you've been to Europe. From what I can tell, this station is kind of in line with what you might see in some of those stations in the Netherlands. Not saying it's better or worse, but it's kind of cut from that same cloth. Wait, hold on real quick. They don't have this at the Dutch train stations. What is this? Is that a raccoon? Did you see that? There's another one over there too. That's not a raccoon. I don't know what that is. That was a raccoon. I don't know what that thing right there is, but they definitely, that's a beaver? Yeah. I've never seen a beaver in person before. That's crazy. And a raccoon. That's so wild. Yeah, they definitely don't have those at the Dutch train stations. All right, so we are here on the train. This is what it's looking like from the train. So far, so good. Feels relatively smooth, right? So if you didn't know, the DC area has some of the worst traffic in the whole entire country. So I'm sure that having this public transit system really alleviates a lot of the pressure. But it's interesting to say that they have such bad traffic, even with the train, even with the bus and the bike lanes. Very, very interesting. It must be a very densely populated place.
This is
But
Main Street, Old Town, the first.
Honestly, I missed riding the train. I really did.
Connection is available.
And you can even see this area right here. I feel like even if the architecture is more American, it does have some elements of that European layout. It feels dense. It seems walkable, at least from the outside looking in. They have the public bike system over there. I don't know if you can see that. And all in all, it looks like a relatively pleasant area. I know Alexandria isn't the largest city out there, but clearly it's a decent sized city. But as far as the inside of the train goes, I do think that the NS trains are better. I feel like the seats are more plush and things like that. But this is still leaps and bounds better than what they have going on in Dallas.
Yeah.
Because at the very least, we're able to pay with card.
Yeah.
And on that note, we basically got 2 unlimited day passes for $13.50 each. It seems a little bit steep, but if you consider the fact that it's an unlimited pass, I think that's a fairly good deal, right? I don't know what that would look like in the Netherlands, cost-wise, or if you know what that would cost. An unlimited day pass, or if they even offer that.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, see, she used the student ID to get a discount, right?
Well, yeah, you can just get a discount if you're a student, but
Yeah.
anyone can get a card.
Yeah. Show you some more of the view. Yeah, like I was saying, DC and its surrounding areas do struggle with traffic quite a bit, but a lot of people do actually commute using the train and the bus here. So it's not just a novelty thing like it is in Dallas. I don't know if there's an element of status within that decision-making process of how people are going to commute to and from work, but enough people here do it for it to seem like it would be a socially normal thing. And I could be completely wrong about that. Again, I'm not from DC. I don't know much about DC, but just logically speaking, if that many people are taking the train or the bus, I'd imagine that you won't be ridiculed for doing so. And honestly, if I lived here, I would probably just ditch the car altogether. I'd probably just not even have a car, because it seems like the train can take you just about anywhere you want to go. Could be wrong about that as well, but a combination of a bus, a train, and bikes can take you very, very far here. All right, so we just made it to Washington, D.C. So add this to the list of places that we've been thus far. I don't know if you knew this, but D.C. is not part of Virginia or Maryland. It's basically its own thing. I don't really know how to explain that, because I don't really know the logistics of how that works either. But it's not a state, it's a city, but it's not part of another state. I don't really know how to explain it, but we're here in DC, and honestly, first impressions from my perspective, it seems pretty nice. I don't know what I was expecting, but it seems like a relatively nice area, very lively. You have a lot of squirrels and whatnot here. Looks like they're pretty friendly too. So maybe we should try to find something we can feed them. But it's very lively. Obviously, a lot of these people are probably tourists like us. But I mean, people are people at the end of the day. And this definitely beats what you see in a lot of Dallas, where it's literally just dead and desolate. But even the squirrels are lively. Like, this one's damn near letting me walk up right to him. But we're trying to find all of the different tourist attractions. Generally, I'm not a very tourist attraction type of person. I just more so like to live out my day-to-day life in a new place. Look at that little bird right there. I like to sort of catch a vibe, get a feel for a place. And I feel like tourist attractions generally don't really allow you to do that. But when you have tourist attractions like that right there,
Yeah.
I mean, you have no choice but to go and see that. Let's go ahead and see what that's talking about. What are your first impressions so far from a European perspective?
I like this.
You like
This
it?
might be now my number one place that we've been.
This is your number one place so far. I'm curious to see if that will remain the case, because my personal prediction, I don't want to say what I think her favorite city will be, because I don't want to set that precedent in her mind, but I believe that within the next week to week and a half, she will see her favorite place in the whole entire country. But you can see you have the White House right here, and I've heard some people say that to them it's a lot smaller than they thought. To me, it's a little bit bigger than I would have anticipated. I hope this copyrighted music doesn't demonetize this video. Let's go ahead and walk away from that. What were you about to say?
I did think it was a little bit bigger.
Really?
Yeah. But it is pretty beautiful though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a lot prettier in person, I think,
Yeah.
because they have a lot of detail. You probably can't see it from this far away on camera, but when it comes to the little details within the architecture, it's really, really pretty. Kind of reminds me of some of the houses we saw in St. Charles Avenue in New Orleans, just scaled up 20x. But obviously most of the people here are going to be tourists. You have people running, jogging. This is a nice area in general. You got the police out here. You know, they're not playing any games. That's Secret Service police too. That's not just regular police. Those are the people who are trained specifically to combat any type of major threats. But I don't know why I didn't really think that it would be fenced like this. I thought that you were kind of just able to go into it as if it were a museum. Yeah, because there are people who have been in there, but I don't know where I got that idea from. Maybe a movie or something. But I mean, this is really nice. This is really nice. You have the fountain. Just to think about the history of this place and how many people have passed through this house right here. Absolutely insane. This is a really beautiful house.
Yeah.
I think we should move there. I might just run for president just so we can live in the
I'm not
house.
gonna clean all that.
We have a cleaning team. We'll work together to clean it and clean up this country while we're at it. That's a different discussion for a different day. Honestly, I might be in the minority here. I actually like touristy areas. I know a lot of people, especially locals, they try to avoid touristy areas at all costs. But I guess growing up in Dallas, I didn't really get to see a whole lot of that international interaction between people. So I kind of crave that. A big part of the reason why I like bigger cities. But we're currently on our way to the Washington Monument. Something I just thought about, you can see this gate right here. I guess this is where the cars come and go. And fun fact, the president, if I recall correctly, is not allowed to actually drive himself. I'm currently listening to Obama's autobiography, and that's something that he mentioned, is that he is not allowed, or at least when he was in office, he wasn't allowed to actually drive himself.
What is that?
I guess safety reasons. And here in the US, the president rides in this car called the Beast, which is basically this bulletproof, bomb-proof Cadillac limo. And you can just look up a picture. As a matter of fact, I'll put a picture on the screen right now of what the car looks like. But rest assured that they are not playing any games. But I already know what you were about to say.
Yeah.
In the Netherlands,
Our prime minister was just riding his bike.
yep, the prime minister in the Netherlands rides their bike to wherever they're going. That's really interesting. That would never, ever happen here, ever. But I don't know what this building right here is.
Yeah.
Definitely looks very historical as well. But I like this area.
Yeah.
You have live music. You have a lot of tourism, obviously. Just nice vibes all around. So as we make our way to the Washington Monument, I want to just point out a few other things that I've noticed. For starters, I feel like downtown DC is a lot cleaner than I would have anticipated. Of course, you will have litter every now and again. You can't really control that with so many people here, but it's cleaner than I would have imagined for sure. And the roads seem like they're a lot nicer. Obviously, we're not driving on these roads, but just visually, they do seem like they have fewer potholes, cracks, bumps, etc. Also, I think that something that you probably wouldn't know just from watching this video is that DC is actually a fairly dangerous city, statistically speaking. There is a lot of crime, a lot of violent crime, but obviously that's going to be in other areas of DC that we probably will not be exploring, at least not intentionally. But also, there's not as much homelessness as I would have anticipated either. Of course, that's probably just them trying to actively keep the homeless community away from the tourist attractions. I feel like that's pretty normal for most cities, especially cities that rely on tourism. But all in all, I mean, when you get to the downtown area, I feel like it does give more of that American vibe, but the architecture does give me some of that European feel as well, with just the level of attention to detail and how old a lot of the buildings look, but old in a charming way, not in an outdated way. But we are making our way to the Washington Monument. After that, I don't really know what we're gonna see because, again, I don't know anything about DC. I don't know what there is to see. I'm not too well informed on history like that. But maybe this trip will help change that. So as you can see, that is the Washington Monument. Honestly, I don't know the historical significance of it. I really don't know the historical significance or relevance of really any of this stuff at all. What I do know is that either at the Washington Monument or at the Capitol building, I'm pretty sure it was one of the two, could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it was at one of those two places that Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. I don't know if you've heard of that speech before, or if you know who Martin Luther King Jr. is.
Yeah, I know who he is, but I don't know too much about the speech.
Yeah, so basically, that's probably the most famous speech he ever gave. And the premise of the speech was him explaining his vision for the future of America, which was you and I being able to walk together on a sidewalk like this and me not getting harassed or killed. So it's fair to say that, I mean, we just got finished traveling through the deep South. So we're talking Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, places where in maybe the 1950s, we would not have been able to do this. Despite her not being American, but just with her being white, me being black, we wouldn't have been able to do this. We were able to do it, and we didn't really receive any strange looks or anything of that nature. So all in all, I would say that his dream became a reality.